Mr. King of Iowa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the witnesses for your testimony and for making the trip here today to help illuminate this subject matter. I spent my life in the construction business. We're in the now 35th or 36th year, and started out with a little one-man operation. My biggest fear was government regulators, and of those regulators, my biggest fear was the IRS. And now, a generation and a half, almost 2 generations have gone by since then, and I'd start with Mr. Kivett and say, is there any agency that you have more trepidation about than the IRS?
If there's one, I'm not aware of it.
And if we could go on down the line, Mr. Eagleton.
Well, certainly in our industry we worry about Homeland Security, and we also worry about the Department of Labor, and but the IRS is number one.
Thank you. Mr. Shipley?
Without a doubt, the same.
And Mr. Kegley?
IRS and the Environmental Protection Agency.
I'm glad you got that plug in there. I certainly lived through these things myself, and I'm one who has also made a point, and I just make a point of reservation here for the panel and the witnesses and the people in the room, that we have a larger elephant in the room here. I actually don't think he falls under the species of elephant, and it's the Obamacare legislation that is the father of this 1099 rule that is before us here today. And it's been real clear where I stand, and I think 2/3 of the American people seek to abolish and repeal Obamacare in all of its aspects. And I have taken the position that we need to go after the whole thing, and that if we take small parts of it out, that it diminishes some of our resistance. And I would just ask, if I go down the line again, starting with Mr. Kivett, not that we disagree here, because I'm going to support this legislation, but have you concerned yourself with the idea that if we pull out the most egregious aspects of Obamacare, we may be stuck with the broader components of it?
That is a concern, and of course I think the health care law is the biggest burden on small business today. It's the biggest burden I've seen in the 30-some years that I've run my business that's come across, and I'm not sure how we're going to handle this. It's small business will survive, but we're not going to be able to create jobs that are required for the 65% that we're supposed to generate. I don't see how we can with this burden on our shoulders.
And Mr. Eagleton?
Thank you. I really worry about the health care legislation and its impact on my business. Last year I did about $940,000 in sales as a restaurant. My net income after debt service was minus $500. So any government mandate on my business will force me to close. 22 employees and my family and I will be ruined. The health care legislation that's mandated, currently I employ or have insurance on 4 employees. That cost has gone up from $11,000 in 2004 to over $39,000 in 2011. And I don't know if I have to pay for health insurance for my employees, how I'm going to survive. I will shut my doors. I don't know how I'm going to make it through this.
And Mr. Eagleton, as I hear this, I think you said $940,000 in gross receipts, $500 in net.
Negative 500.
Negative
correct.
500. Sorry, I missed that. I know I've lived a little of that myself, and there seems to be an attitude on the part of the administration that even small business is making large margins, and I think they don't understand how much of this is it is a life that we live because we want to have the freedom to be able to raise our families and do those things that you get from being self-employed. And I would just offer that same question to Mr. Shipley, see if he care to respond.
I agree 100% with how you stand on this, and it is very difficult. It's something that, as you all know, being self-employed, there is nights when you lay awake and you wonder what's going to happen tomorrow. Am I going to be here not only for my salary but for the people that I employ? How am I going to pay them? How am I going to keep this going? So it is. I heard a story. I don't know if this is the best analogy. Somebody said if you lifted a seat or a stone out in the desert and there was a rattlesnake under it with a bunch of baby rattlesnakes, would you just take care of the big rattlesnake, or would you take care of them all? So as a small business owner and the people I represent, we would agree. the whole thing is scary for us as a small business owner.
And I thank you, Mr. Shipley. Watching my clock tick down, I turned a little bit different question to Mr. Kegley, and that is that as I've listened to the testimony of the witnesses here and their responses, and the IRS and the regulations and the burden of these 1099 squeal forms, we always called them, and I think we still do, what does it do? You're in business. What does it do to the people that are thinking about starting a business when they're staring in the eye the 1099 squeal forms and the weight of the IRS and the other regulations, the EPA that you brought up, Mr. Kegley? What would be your response to whether we have more or less entrepreneurs in America?
I think there'll be less, because anytime government puts up these artificial barriers for new businesses, then it's that much more difficult to start a new business, and there will be less and less of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back my negative balance of time.